Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Municipality of Thames Centre Special Council meeting. The date is Monday, December the 9th, 2024. It's 9 a.m. and I'd like to call this meeting to order. There are no additions to the agenda. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest amongst the members of council? None? Okay. Under item number 4, correspondence, that consent agenda item 4.1 be received for information. This is the Environmental Advisory Committee. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Lockie and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Departmental presentations. Mr. Barrick, whenever you're ready.
Great. Good morning, members of council. We're pleased to be able to present your draft 2025 budget, capital and operating. This morning, Sarah was kind enough to email you a copy of today's lengthy slide deck. It does include departmental presentations as well. So you have the link and we can have hard copies available for you as well. The presentation will also form part of the minutes. So to start, as a friendly reminder, we're very pleased to be able to be awarded the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. The Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for Municipality Thames Centre is awarded for governments who publish a budget document that meets program criteria, such as a policy document, financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. We believe our current budget, the 2025, also meets these requirements, and we'll be submitting once again to determine eligibility for another award in 2025. The presentation today does include, as noted, corporate overview, council, and the departments. It also aligns with your budget agenda today. So high-level overview. Again, we'll be talking about budget considerations, our approach, and how this aligns with your strategic priorities. And of course, what the levy request is at this time. The proposed operating and capital levies this year is $12.2 million operating for levy supported. That's with respect to day-to-day services, staff salaries, maintenance contracts, etc. I would add that last year, I think it was just about 11 million, just a little bit less than that. The total operating budget, though, however, this is levy supported, and 2024 was 19.6 million, and 2025 is 20.8 million. That's inclusive of other source revenues like user fees, donations, grants, development fees, et cetera, et cetera. The capital, as you can see here, is $10.8 million request. We'll get into some more detail on what makes that up. The considerations, similar to last year, looking at fiscal sustainability, we looked at our various master plans, community service master plan, water wastewater rate study, stormwater plan that's currently drafted up for discussion for council this evening. Taxpayer affordability, of course, your priorities. Importantly, actuals again. We've continued to align the budget to hone in more closely with the actuals. And of course, community engagement, which will speak to some of those results as well. The operating approach, again, similar to last year, showing greater transparency by showing actuals you have in your budget, previous year's actuals, and aligning the budget to those. Demonstrated respect for tax dollars, phasing in growth and phasing in projects. We'll hear a little bit later about also phasing in the impact of OPP. That's outlined in your report. Realigning some service levels to meet the changes in public demand. One example is again enhanced service at the Thorndale Community Center. Operational allocations, so maximizing our reserves, in particular to fund one-time operating expenditures, which were previously embedded as part of the operating base. Now they're not. And of course, continuing to find those efficiencies. Council was kind enough to approve and support the KPI piece that allows us to do the inventory and how we continue to break. We'll continue to keep an eye on that to ensure that we've got those efficiencies and they continue to be aligned with your expectations on service delivery. The budget approach, similar. We had evaluated unspent 2024 capital. There's about 5 million there to do and about 27 projects. I think that's outlined in your report as well as forecasting and identifying projects that are close to being finished and returning those funding, any remaining funds to the overall reserve to be reconsidered and used once again. The 2025 capital plan focused on projects that can be delivered within the year, but not getting too far out ahead of ourselves. Funding sustainability as well, evaluating the next few years and how we continue to deliver with respect to project management principles that we have in place and continue to build upon. Further noting the 2025 asset management plan. A lot of it's done, but it'll be fully complete in 2025. The budget process overview. Council is familiar. In June of this year, passed the timetable for this budget process. That was in June 2024. We did a 5-year actuals review, a multi-year plan review, capital business case templates were conducted with directors submitting business cases in July. We had a corporate consolidation of the budget, draft budget that is, that was reviewed and prioritized. And now at this stage, you can see where we had a council workshop, December 2nd. We're pleased to be able to respond to questions, in particular water, wastewater, and stormwater management. And then here today for council's consideration. And then there's a meeting slated for Monday as well, if council wishes to have more time. Afterwards will be the tax rate setting, as well as any budget amendments in the year that might come forward based on other projects in the future that are not planned at this time. And that might be based on grant funding being awarded, such as the North Pad Arena grant application. So the budget survey, it's pretty consistent with last year's what we heard. And most respondents were satisfied from a service level perspective with waste management, collection, recycling services, as well as our recreation facilities. And then most people were dissatisfied with road infrastructure. Last year, you may recall, planning and building was up there, and pleased to see that there's been some movement on that front. The road infrastructure piece, you'll see this capital budget really prioritizes that hard infrastructure for your consideration. Again, similarly, 2024 municipal taxes, most people, 63%, preferred maintaining services with an inflationary increase versus increased taxes for increased services, as well as many disagreed with reducing services for lower taxes. So kind of right down the middle, maintaining services and maintaining inflationary increases is the feedback. The top priority for residents this year, pretty similar to last year as well. Once again, infrastructure, which aligns with the satisfaction levels at the top. Parks and trails, recreational programming, and planning quality neighborhoods. Again, these items are prioritized in our budget as well. You can see the top projects, roads, infrastructure, sidewalks, and housing was brought up as well. I would add that comments within the graphics are actual comments we received. So the strategic priorities, again, aligning this budget with council strategic priorities. Council is very familiar with those for the public's purposes: smart planning, community engagement, active living, economic development, and sustainability. That's available online as well. How does this budget align? Well, we're investing in cloud permit software, process automation to help reduce wait times for permit and planning applications, as per strategic priority 2A. Investing in revitalizing roads with the Upper Queen Street and Thorndale Road urbanization aligned with strategic priority 2D, as well as proposing to invest in a long-term water usage study for future planning. More can be gleaned from those particular projects as directors make their presentations as well. Community communications and engagement. So we will continue to have those ward town hall meetings subject to individual council council member agreement, as well as town hall forums. That aligns with strategic priorities 3A, B, and C. Council did initiate the community grants process, which we are continuing to do and propose with this budget. And of course, the new website with the metrics dashboard will be up and running as well in 2025. Active living. So we're proposing the development of a Parks and Trails master plan, which is aligned with strategic priority 4C. That is a continuation of the community services facilities master plan, which did recommend this as well, and is specifically referenced in your strategic plan. Investing in trails, White Creek and Valley View are proposed for 2025. Investing in parks and playgrounds, including boardwalk development. Economic development, so continuation of the newly minted community improvement grants, community improvement plan grants, continuation of support local campaign, and building a tourism master plan, which is aligned with strategic priority 5G. Sustainability is always a big one, an important one, which we've heard from council as well as the public. And so this budget also includes a 1% capital infrastructure levy being recommended to address the risk of both capital and development charge reserve depletion, similar rationale as last year. An annual capital infrastructure levy will build towards sustainably funded capital program. The completion of the asset management plan in 2025 is funded and will also further inform a sustainable long-term financial management plan for the municipality. And investing in the sustainability and integrity of our municipal road network, including bridges and culverts. You'll see there's some heavy investment in these areas in this budget. We're proposing to continue funding the tree planting plan and green initiatives while working closely with the Environmental Advisory Committee. That's in line with strategic priority 7C. You saw the Environmental Advisory Committee request as part of the opening of this agenda as well. Pleased to say that there is a portion of funds allocated towards council initiatives that could meet that request. Incorporating the strategic plan into the budgets, which as we're going through, we've done. Increased grants to assist in sustainability of local resources. We've had some success in 2024. We want to continue that success in 2025 to help alleviate the local ratepayers and taxpayers. Again, the proposed tax levy increase that we're proposing is fiscally prudent while maintaining affordable, sustainable taxation levels as per strategic priority 7B. As a result, Thames Centre continues to have the lowest municipal tax rate in Middlesex County and amongst all neighboring municipalities, which you can see here. The first line on the left is the tax rate, and the difference on the far right, you can see the average is about $1,300. One would pay more in property taxes on average in any of those other neighboring communities or in the county. Seen a different way, you can see here Thames Centre is quite low in comparison to all our county colleagues as well as all our neighboring municipalities. Now, what this also shows is there's room. If council has particular projects or priorities, there is room to lean into some of that growth. It's okay to be somewhere middle of the pack. And of course, if this council wants to continue to be the absolute lowest, then that's already achievable here as well. So calculating property taxes, we showed this slide last year. That's the required overall budget. How much is required from the levy divided by the assessed value, of which that information we see from MPAC to equate to the property taxes. For Thames Center, locally, in terms of how much money is required to deliver these services, we did do a close look, and we did have about $350,000 in increased operational costs, mostly related to wage increases, including collective agreement obligations, materials, supplies, etc. We, as part of having this budget more aligned with actuals, reduced planning fee revenue to align with those actuals. They were a little bit higher, and we knew we likely wouldn't be getting that amount of revenue from planning, so we corrected it or right-sized it, which was about a $50,000 reduction. On the other side, we did get increased Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund annual allocation. We have realized operational savings for 2025 by shopping additional vendors for certain services. And as well, the new assessment coming online is 0.8%, which I would add is less than previous years, but nonetheless, it's $95,000 there. So the offset is equates to those increased operational costs have been absorbed. With respect to how do we get to the levy proposal outlined in the report, operational issues have been absorbed. Now there's a 23% increase in Upper Thames River Conservation Levy, which is 0.4%, as this council can see. Our Ontario Hydro has increased 14%, so it's $53,000. That's another 0.4. Increased in no PP billings, 0.2. As referenced, recommending or continue to recommend that capital infrastructure levy of 1%. And as outlined in your report, we do have that OPP 20% increase, which is a 3% hit on our levy. We've since had a year's grace to know that it's coming to hit us in 2026, which is appreciated, rather than just giving us a few weeks notice. And so we're recommending to phase that in 1.5% this year, 1.5% next year. And so that brings our total proposed levy increase request to 3.5% in total. Once again, that does leave council with room, should you wish, to either increase the capital infrastructure levy further or other priorities that you may have or want to consider. I would add that other local municipalities that I've been in touch with do have their budget considerations coming in around 5 to 7%. Draft, we'll see where they land as well. So we're just below that for council's consideration. So there is a video here. I'm not sure if it works, if we're able to play it, Sarah. If not, it's available online. Okay, no problem. It's a good explanation of how municipal budgets work. It is a video directly from MPAC, and it is available online, I believe. If council is interested, we can come back to it after. Once again, the property tax distribution for Thames Center is being proposed, as you can see here, with the vast majority going towards protective services such as fire, bylaw, building, and transportation, as well as recreation and culture. Capital, similarly, you can see the bulk is related to hard infrastructure on the ground, so roads, wastewater services, and fleet services. You can see here as well, over the last 5 years, there's been over $50 million invested in the community. About half of that has been from reserve funding. And so moving forward, that capital infrastructure levy will help support the sustainability of those respective reserves. In 2025, we've got about 23 capital projects proposed, as noted, about $10 to $11 million, with carryover projects, 27 of them, about $4 or $5 million. In total, in 2025, there will be about $15 million worth of work and 50 projects proposed under management. The long-term debt that the municipality has, you can see outlined here. In 2024, it's about 8.5 million. The annual repayment limit set by the province is 4 million. For Tem Center, that annual repayment cost is 1.2. This does not yet take into consideration the Flight Exec Center renovation expansion. That'll add about $500,000 to the 1.2. So there is still some debt capacity that the municipality has to consider as you look forward in other projects moving ahead. The property tax distribution remains unchanged from 2023 and 2024. Similarly, 40% of the overall tax bill goes to the county, 15% to the school board, and 45% of the tax bill comes to Tem Center. And even within that 45%, as we discussed, much of that goes to other agencies like the OPP. So council's budget. Council knows very well its role, but more for presentation purposes. Council's responsibility with respect to representing the public and consider the well-being and interests of the municipality, determining which services the municipality provides, as well as which service levels, as well as policies, practices, procedures, and controllership policies, accountability and transparency of the operations, and including the activities of senior management, maintaining the financial integrity of the municipality, and carrying out the duties of council under the Municipal Act. As referenced, council legislation includes a variety of provincial laws, including the Municipal Act, the Municipal Elections Act, Planning Act, Drainage Act, Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, as well as local bylaws. You'll see that similar framework of laws that staff abide by as well. The proposed 2025 operating budget for council, you can see broken down here. The overall expenses are about $320,000. Bulk of that is within wages, which is not uncommon in other departments as well. You can see community partnership grants there, as well as council initiatives are two new areas of service that this council has put into place. So the Office of the CAO, similarly, you can see the department structure here. The Office of the CAO is really the top four up there, the communications, project manager, human resources, as well as myself. The directors below that, you'll see they have separate departmental budgets that will be presented upon. But for the purposes of the office, it's those four. So the CAO oversees the coordination, execution, and continual upkeep of organizational services and initiatives. The primary objective is to uphold compliance with legislative mandates and critically implementation of council's direction. Again, the similar departmental legislation that council also abides by. The operating budget, similarly here, the Office of the CAO is about $720,000. Much of that is within the wages. Economic development expenses of about $60,000 is there as well, with the breakdown in your budget binders. The Office of the CAO houses the IT budget currently, which is about $360,000. But those lines that you see, computer software, professional services, telecommunications, are allocated and used to support everyone in the organization. Some of the initiatives that my office will be working on is tourism master plan subject to council approval, continued grant applications as noted earlier, the support local business campaign, the new website development, continuous improvement, sponsorship development, naming rights, corporate training, continuous improvement, and that includes project management. With that, I'm happy to take any questions, Mayor, either with the presentation or as well any questions related to the sections in the budget binder.
Thanks, Mr. Barrick. Are there any questions, the members of council? Yeah, go ahead. This is a longer microphone. Okay, thank you. Through your worship, I think it's a good time to kind of
going to pause and talk about the wage increase, because we had brought it up at a council meeting a while ago, and we agreed to, kind of put it as part of the budget discussion. Because that was as per the study, that was to put us in the 6th percentile. So I think it's a good time to, have that discussion. Personally, when we ran for council, we knew the pay going in. That's kind of what we signed up for. So I think the timing is not right to give ourselves a wage increase. Perhaps before the next election, I think it would be a more appropriate time to implement that. But that's just my personal opinion.
Anyone else like to jump in on this? Councillor Crockett.
These are kind of weird. Uh, Thanks, Danielle, for your comments. Had kind of the same thought here, that I do believe that the timing with the union and non-negotiations line us for looking at what council should be receiving as a fair compensation kind of across the board. But I think that there perhaps other elements that the budget should be focused on. At maybe next year, 2026 budget purposes, we can revisit council's remuneration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Thank you. I think in the overall scheme of things, it's a rather small amount. I'm not looking at it as like a personal increase in the wages. What I'm looking to do is make sure we're setting up the future council for success. It's more of an attraction piece, because I think it's sometimes difficult to get people to run for council, unfortunately. So I think of it as that. I know it's not a lot of money, but for some people that might have to, for example, maybe, leave their place of employment to run for council. It is a small increase. And so my only concern is if we don't address it now, and then we address it before the next election, that's going to potentially be a bit of a jump, right, between what we're talking about today and what we're talking about at the election. Again, I just think it's fair, like if staff and fire, we're guided by the same recommendations and by the same consultant, that we should be within the 60th percentile. I'm just not so sure why council shouldn't be within that.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to add some comments to this one? But maybe this is an unfair question, and maybe I just forgot. What would that recommended increase bring up the councillor's pay to? Does anyone know that? Emily?
Thank you, through your worship. That would approximately be $33,000 in wages and benefits, additional costs for council.
Additional costs.
Like from 2024 budget, yes.
Mhm.
So if I may, Mayor,
Yes.
that's already included in this proposed budget. So if council proceeds, it would be reducing at that amount.
Okay. No other comments then? Are you making a motion, Deputy Mayor Smiley?
I will not, because it's already included in the budget, so
All right, then.
I would like to keep it there.
Councillor Lockie, go ahead.
I would like to make the motion to wait until the next fiscal year to implement the rate as recommended by the study. And I would recommend only a 2% cost of living adjustment for this budget, and to adjust the budget accordingly.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a seconder? Or is there discussion? Yeah, you do. No one to second. Seconded then by Councillor Heyman. So it's open for discussion. Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
I just had a question on the cost of living adjustment. What's in the budget for that?
Thank you, through the mayor, 3%.
Councillor Lockie.
May I change my motion then to use a 3% cost of living adjustment?
All right. So you're amending the motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you still willing to second, Counselor Human? All right. So on that particular issue then, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Two opposed. Okay. I think under certain budget constrictions right now, I'd be willing to forego at this point and leave it until the next go around for budget. So, yes. All right. Any other questions on anything else that has to do with the budget overview from the CA? Councillor Crockett.
It's just finicky. Sorry about that. Through you, Mayor. Just wanted to have a more of a conversation on the plan to grow reserves. Appreciate the 1% levy added for capital reserves towards infrastructure. I was just wondering whether we could have, now it's looking at me, sorry, people can't hear me. Just wanted to have a conversation on whether we feel that that's appropriate considering where reserves sit now, or whether we should look at potentially increasing for 20.
Thank you. We will open this one up for discussion then. Anyone want to offer anything in the meantime while we try to get this mic fixed?
Was that a question more for staff to provide a bit of a kind of background, or you want council to provide some?
I think either or. I think it's an opportunity. Still blinking it. I don't know. I'm just going to keep going. I think okay, we found the sweet spot. I would like to hear comments from both sides. I think there's an opportunity for staff to comment on whether it's appropriate. I'm sure the kind of lesser amount going forward was proposed, but also from council on whether we feel that this is enough, I think.
I think what I'll do is I'll look to staff first and then turn it over to council. So go ahead, Mr. Barrick.
That's great. Thank you, Mayor. Further to the question, so yes, the risk of reserve depletion was identified last year, hence the introduction of the annual infrastructure levy to help address it directly. What Councillor Crockett is raising is the speed with which council would like to address it directly. The 1% last year, 1% this year, 1% the year after that, to be 1% every year, so that over a period of, let's say, 10 years in this case, you're generating over $1 million annually, as an example, into capital reserves for either debenture payment or specific projects. Now, as I referenced earlier in the top of the presentation, council could consider moving that from 1% to 2% or any number that you think is satisfactory in order to ramp that up. We know council may have other projects and priorities in mind long-term that it would like to start addressing. There are a couple potential larger projects looming in 2025 and beyond, depending on grant applications as well. So if we're successful in either grant applications or loan applications, we'll need to meet our share 50% or so of it. And I would recommend 50 cents anytime. And so we have the fiscal capacity to meet those as they arise is good. Operationally, I think we've got about 5 million in reserves, which is about 40% of the levy, which is pretty good, healthy comparatively. But the capital reserves and the DCs overdrawn, that's the area that staff have identified, and Councillor Crockett brings up a good point. It's from our perspective, from a staff perspective, it's council's willingness in terms of how quickly you'd like to address the gap and other looming projects that this council may want to address and have the capacity to do so. So I hope that helps with some high-level commentary.
Is that satisfactory then? Any other comments then, Chantal, before we move on?
No, I'm comfortable to move to other
Okay.
members of council.
Okay, then Deputy Mayor Smybert.
Great, thank you. And I think you do bring up a really good point, Councillor Crockett. And because it does seem to me as if we could take a look at that. I think, but we need to lean on staff to a certain extent because we don't know what we don't know. So I think it's hard for us to say, yeah, we need to, not knowing what the next few years are going to bring. So I guess I'm hoping, that's why sometimes that 5-year budget kind of informs you as to what, bigger projects are coming down the pipe. But I guess we're leaning on staff to a certain extent, right? They've done that analysis and they're giving us their recommendation in terms of what should be going into reserve. So I hope I'm addressing that correctly, but I agree it's something that we need to work on. Again, I don't know what I don't know in the next few years to know how much more money to be putting into those reserves.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. So you're comfortable with the 1%?
Again, I'm leaning on
On
staff,
staff.
and this is what staff's bringing to us
Okay.
unless there's other
Okay.
kind of commentary or things that staff want to bring forward for our attention.
Sure. And then I'll let you make your comment then. Mr. Barrett, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, the 2025 asset management plan is proposed to be completed by the summer. That will actually help us inform that financial management plan. We'll know for sure what our infrastructure gap will be. We know there will be one. Every municipality has one. And in many cases, it's almost impossible to fill the gap completely for municipalities. But once we have that order of magnitude, we will have a better idea of how quickly we need to ramp things up. Now, the consideration, my sense is on this particular budget round is that there, as noted, there's room. There's room to consider adding an extra percent as an example when looking at other municipalities around us. There may not be room every other year because of surprises like the OPP, et cetera. The other piece is it's planned around an annual contribution. So it'd be at least a 1% recommended every single year. And then it's council's pleasure if they want to add to that, I'd say 2% or more at any time. So I hope that also helps provide some context.
So going forward, if council wanted to take that up to 2% next year or 1.5% or whatever next year on that particular portion of the budget, that option would be open, but the recommendation is 1% going forward from staff. Okay. Councillor Heeman, did you have your hand in the air?
Yes, let me just gather my thoughts. I think you got to look at the reserves that are overdrawn, and it's largely in recreation. And we did have a very large expenditure in recreation. And we also have a shortfall in development charges for 2 years. So I am just wondering as to how much of this is seasonal in terms of a downturn in the construction economy and our ability to debt finance should recuperate when the housing market recuperates as well. And if we have this levy in place, again, having that compounding component to it, it will be contributing significantly over time. I think you still have to look at, we are spreading that 2-year capital purchase of the active living center. There we go.
Seniors
Yeah.
Active Living Center.
How's that for word salad? So we're still digesting some pretty big expenses that I think if we give ourselves a little breathing room, I think we'll be able to come back to a healthy position. And again, like if we do have the unexpected increase from the OPP, and if we are able to maintain some some good practices without too many surprises, I think we should have room in next year's budget to maintain our fiscal track record and to allocate additional funds to reserves. So I just would caution again, like we have that low standing in taxes because we have almost historically been 3.5, and that's consistency and predictability to the taxpayer. And just because other people are raising their taxes, it doesn't mean that that should change our focus.
Thanks, Councillor Heeman. So you're comfortable with the 1%? Okay. All right. Any other comments? Councillor Lockie?
I would actually like to encourage a 1.5%, just because, you know, the reserve for recreation is so far negative, and it's actually going even worse negative this year. And based on the survey results, you know, recreation is very near and dear to this community. We value our trails, and you know, you had mentioned that we're still doing, you know, the mass, you know, figuring out our capital, and that should be ready in the summer. I'd be more inclined of, you know, putting in 1.5% this year, just to prevent us in case we have like an uh-oh moment when we get the final results, and we might have to have, you know, an even bigger increase in the next year budget. I'd rather kind of phase it in. So that would be my recommendation, and I would like to make that motion to have a 1.5% increase instead of the 1%.
Councillor Heeman?
I think that's a good compromise.
So are you willing to
I'm
second the
willing
motion?
to second that.
All right, then. So we have a motion on the floor, and any discussion on this? Deputy Mayor Smyrick?
I'm just wondering though, if we could just defer that decision until we've gone through the entire budget. If we've already saved a portion of monies because of the, we're not going ahead with Mary Ann Law's recommendation for 60% off for the council wages. There might be other savings we might find that we could apply to that. I'm just wondering if we could just, instead of making the decision now, can we talk about it at the end of the budget discussion process?
Yeah, I'll support the deputy mayor's recommendation.
All right. Okay, so we will defer this and vote later then. Okay? All right. Councillor Crockett, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was actually going to say pretty much the same thing as the deputy mayor over here, but thank you for the recommendation, Danielle. One of the things that I think we do need to consider that Tom touched on is that we have had a lull in development charges over the past 2 years, and we've seen some dirt moving already, which is, you know, optimistic for 2025. So hopefully we can recuperate some of those costs there. So we can continue this discussion after the rest of the presentation.
Okay, then council is agreed. We will move on then. Are you all finished then, Mr. Barrick?
I'm at the pleasure of council, Mayor.
Okay. Any other oh, I'm sorry, missed you. Go ahead.
It's okay. I was trying to ask questions individually instead of the many that I usually ask at one time. I do have just 2 more comments that I'd like to put forward before Mr. Barrick passes the torch, if that's okay. The first is we do look to MPAC for assessments when deciding local levies and tax rates. We have any updates from MPAC on local residential assessments? Because I don't believe that's been completed holistically since like 2016.
Through the mayor, thanks for the question, Councillor Crockett. The short answer is no. They have not laid out how they're going to start addressing that issue. I suspect that they probably won't until after the next provincial election, and then even then, who knows? I mean, it is something that we can certainly ask about when we're at Roma and AMO. But yeah, the short answer is currently we're in the status quo framework of 2016.
Perfect. Good segue into my final comment here is the increase in Upper Thames Conservation Area levy. It's been almost or over 50% over the past 2 years, and I'm just not sure exactly where those funds are going and what impact they're having on our local community. So there's likely not much we can do right now, but I would like to propose bringing that forward at a delegation at a future meeting. I believe we've missed the deadline for Roma, but perhaps putting it on the list for AMO as a delegation.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Mayor, to the councillor. Certainly we can do that as well. Last year, you may recall, we did invite Upper Thames River folks to present. We can do the same. They may be able to present directly to this council as well, maybe in January. We'll extend the invitation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Heeman.
Just as the council's board representative for Upper Thames, like maybe able to shed some light on that. There's two components. There's the freezing of the development fees. And that's something that there was a delegation from Upper Thames to endorse lobbying the province to unfreeze those fees, because right now the increased operating costs for planning and development, specifically around hazard and floodlands for development, is being borne on the levy, which is paid by us then. And then the main component is it's catching up with salaries. So there was salary increases were during like cost of living adjustments, not anything outrageous, but just cost of living adjustments for the past 3 years prior to this term of council were paid for out of reserves. So they do not have any operating reserves. And so in order to sustain those wages, they're increasing the levy.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions then before we move on? Okay, all right, thank you. So I'll call on Mr. McDonald, Director of Community Services and Facilities, to present his report.
Good morning, through you, Your Worship. There we go. I'll let you drink that in for a minute. Okay, good morning. So the majority of staffing for this department falls under Parks and Facilities, with 9 full-time employees in that area, overseen by Devin as the manager and Luke as the foreman, along with permanent and seasonal part-timers to complement the team. Then under administrative assistants, we have Tori and Abby, who take care of all the department tasks in that regard, along with also providing their administrative services for our fire department. Karen is our 20-year veteran coordinating the Active Living Center, with Lucinda currently as the assistant while Kayla is on maternity leave. Meanwhile, Tammy Butt takes care of cemetery services, splitting her time also with the planning and development department. For department overview, this department plays a pivotal role, allowing residents to enjoy a healthy lifestyle, physically, mentally, and socially, thereby contributing to a vibrant community. You oversee the operation, maintenance, and growth of parks and recreation related infrastructure and services. With regards to parks and facilities, we manage 2 community centers, which includes our Active Living Center, 2 ice pads, auditoriums, meeting rooms, gymnasiums, kitchens, a walking track, and spaces rented to VON and others. We also manage the community pool, a wading pool, splash pads, trails, ball diamonds, soccer fields, basketball courts, skateboard parks, playgrounds, pavilions, field houses, tennis and pickleball courts, dog parks, cemeteries, and libraries. So in summary, everything and the kitchen sinks. We also have the pleasure of overseeing various annual community events in partnership with the Special Events Committee, which I will expand on shortly. Let's now talk about the two tallest buildings in Thames Center, as they have the most stories. Our libraries. We lease these two facilities to Middlesex County Library, who provide wonderful collections, wireless internet, computers, programs, and other valuable resources to our residents. We manage 8 cemeteries, with the Dorchester Union Cemetery being our only active one, along with 7 inactive cemeteries listed there. Our department offers various programs and events. For programs, we have our aquatics programs, which are primarily swimming lessons and aquafit. Our very popular summer playground day camp, numerous programs through our active living center, which I will get to shortly, along with drop-in sports activities. In addition, we partner with other groups to offer programs and events out of our facilities, including the Boys and Girls Club, the Playroom Experiment, a fitness center, and of course, VON. With regards to events, we host Canada Day, an annual Pride celebration, Corn Fest, outdoor movie nights, and the Festival of Lights. We also work with our Donnybrook Legion for Remembrance Day services. Another event that we host every year is our Volunteer Appreciation Breakfast. We are always looking at and analyzing our offerings and programs and events in order to provide something for everyone to support an inclusive community. The Active Living Center, formerly known as the Senior Center, is not only growing in Dorchester at the Flood Exec Center, but also with a growing number of programs and events in Thorndale. We now have over 600 members, annual members for the Active Living Center, and see over 3,000 participants on a monthly basis. And that just continues to grow. Bi-monthly newsletters and weekly email updates help to keep everyone informed of the countless activities going on in this area of our department. For department-related legislation, there are various things we have to abide by, including the TSSA, which has standards with regards to our refrigeration plant, our boilers, our fuel tanks, and our elevators. CSA has guidelines with regards to playground standards. The Middlesex London Health Unit has standards with regards to aquatics, kitchens and concession stands, and our summer day camp. And also missing on the slide there, but also important, is the AODA to ensure we are doing all we can with regards to accessibility. When looking at our department's operating budget for 2025, our proposed budget, you'll see our revenue comes in at 2.3 million, expenses at 4.97 million, for a net expense of 2.65 million. For the revenue bar chart there, you will see that the Flight Exec Center is the largest contributor for revenue at just under 1.25 million, with the largest lines there being ice rentals at over 700,000, gym rentals at 90,000, and arena advertising at 46,000. Our next largest revenue cost centers are the Active Living Center at 243,000, our playground summer day camp at 220,000, and the 2 libraries at 190,000, which is basically the rent that they pay us. For expenses, again, our largest facility, the Flight Exec Center, has the most expenses at 1.88 million, with the largest costs for there being our principal debenture at 588,000, wages at 388,000, hydro at 278,000, insurance at 128,000, and repairs and maintenance at 115,000. The second highest cost center for expenses is administration at 1.19 million, with the largest lines there being a $540,000 transfer to reserves, over 300,000 in wages, and 76,000 in IT related requirements. When looking at our capital initiatives proposed for 2025, We have 4 projects totaling $370,000 for the department, with those projects being the $240,000 as recently supported by council following the presentation by the Thorndale Lions Club for developing a plan on a future addition to the Thorndale Lions Community Center. $60,000 to begin developing the green space at Boardwalk Phase 1. $50,000 in annual trails improvements, as David mentioned earlier, focusing on repairing a section of trail at Y Creek in Thorndale, along with beginning to pave Valley View Trail, with that item having been identified in the 2021 DC background study. As well, the final capital project proposed is $20,000 to replace the well at the outdoor rec complex, as the existing well has been determined to no longer have a sufficient source of water. For operating initiatives, besides our ongoing regular operating costs, we have a small number of one-time projects proposed for 2025, with those including $5,000 to continue the community garden program, which was very successful this year. With the $5,000 being enough to allow to add a 4th raised garden in Dorchester, which is something the dedicated volunteer group was very keen on adding for next year. And also this budget takes into account that we would change up the Thorndale approach for next year, where instead of having volunteers run that one, we would allow people to apply to have a portion of that garden for their own use, which is similar to the program that's offered in London, City of London. And that's due to a lack of volunteers available for that location. Also for one-time operating budget, $40,000 to update our 2015 Trails and Cycling Master Plan, which will be good timing for that. $7,500 to add protective padding to the walls and beams in the Thorndale Lions Community Center gymnasium. Basically, there's some places like behind the basketball nets and other areas where people are more likely to crash into the walls. So we'd like to give them some padding there so that the impact is lessened and health and safety is maintained. As well, $5,000 to strip and wax the floors at the Thorndale Lions Community Center, which are in desperate need of that. $5,000 for a water fountain at the Orc, with Dorchester Minor Soccer offering to pay a portion of that. And $5,000 to top up the clay at the Field of Dreams at the Orc. And with that being said, oops. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Any questions from the members of council? No? Oh, Councillor Heeman, go ahead.
Thank you for that presentation, Director McDonald. I'm just wondering, I've heard reports from different community groups about the need to shuttle some utensils, serving trays, things like that between the two community centers and kitchens. I was just wondering if this would be a good opportunity to resource an additional set so we have a full complement for both facilities. So I'm just wondering what your perspective is on that.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. I'm just going to double check. I think we still have a small budget line under the Thorndale Lions Community Center to purchase some. We've been building up that inventory a bit over the last couple of years. And yes, we do have $1,000 in there for program supplies. So that'll allow us to address a good portion of it because agreed, as both facilities are getting busier as well, it not only just the logistics of shuttling things back and forth to save some money, but sometimes both locations need the items at the same time or back-to-back days. So
just as a follow-up, would the active living center need an additional top-up for similar reasons? Or do they have discretionary funds that could meet that need?
Yes, I've spoken to Karen about that, and she's pretty happy with the amount of supplies that are in Thorndale for her programs.
Thank you. Councillor Lockie.
Through your worship. So this question is regarding the study for the Trails Master Plan. So it's correct, the amount is $40,000. So I think 10 years ago, they had like a trail committee and they had a Trails Master Plan. I don't know, $40,000, it just seems like a lot to spend when we already have very, very large network of trails. So why is it, why $40,000? What do we get for 40,000?
For sure. Thank you, Councillor. I reached out to Monteith Brown for an estimate on this as they did the 2015 version of the master plan. And I thought, and they just did our community services and facilities master plan. So I think they'll obviously be interested in bidding on this job. And with their more current knowledge of the current most recent trails and master and going through our full department master plan, I think they would have some advantages and less legwork required for them to get to the final plan, just due to their involvement here over the last many years. So I thought they would be able to provide an estimate that would be a bit more competitive and accurate than people we haven't been dealing with. And they came in, their estimated range for a master plan was 40,000 to 70,000. So 40,000 is the low end. And we put that amount in the budget because I'm happy to do as much as we can on the municipal side to help keep the consultant portion down for our master plan. When we redid the community service and facility master plan, it's a bit more robust than just the trails and cycling plan, but it came in at 70,000. So
I'm not sure who had their hand up first. Deputy Mayor Smyberg, go ahead.
I just want to mention, I do think that Dorchester is quite fortunate. We do have lots of trails that we can utilize, but I do think there's some work to be done with the Thorndale area in terms of trails and connectivity. And I think having a plan in place helps staff, especially when taking a look at new plans of subdivision. It's a guidance document to help them understand where to place those trails. And it's not just creating new trails, but it's how you connect kind of the roads and the trails and that whole system. So I think it's beneficial, and I think it's actually a fairly decent price for that. Thank you.
Councillor Heeman.
Yes, this is a follow-up to both questions and comments. Like, you do get some design work out of that as well for like the eventual layouts and there's the amortization schedule, right? Like that 50,000 contribution is based off their financial analysis, and I guess that's more of a comment. Sorry.
Councillor Crockett.
Unrelated to trails. But I would like to say thank you for putting forward some funds towards the green space and boardwalk. That's been something that residents there have been asking for, especially with the number of children in that area and the ample land kind of at the water reserves area that could potentially be parkland. I just had a few comments regarding the capacity at our recreation facilities. Although I would say ringette and hockey are definitely top sports for a lot of families in Thames Center, there are some that don't participate in those sports, but perhaps could utilize the recreation area differently, say on like a family drop-in night. Are those currently taking place? I know the playroom experiment does them, but do we have any gym space that we utilize for programs like that?
thank you, Councillor. Yes, for our drop-in sports programs, at least one of them is a family drop-in time for both Thorndale and Dorchester in the gymnasium. And now with our most recent council approval for the key performance indicators, we'll be able to start better tracking them because truthfully, to this point, we haven't had the time or the setup to really track them closely and monitor them and make adjustments based on those metrics. So that is something we'll be able to do and tweak to make sure, because offering it's one thing, but if we're not offering it at the optimal time, then those are the sorts of things we need to look at and adjust. And then as well, partnering with the Boys and Girls Club and the Playroom Experiment with what they offer. I know Boys and Girls Club, they spend funds to do some analysis and survey the community to see what Thames Center residents want for them to offer. And Arden at Boys and Girls Club has offered to share that sort of information with Thames Center so we can benefit from it as well. And as well, they're always open to working with us to make sure whenever we can that we offer things that complement each other and not things that conflict with each other, so that we're working in the same direction and not kind of causing competition for each other.
Perfect, thank you. And then just one final comment. Having gone to a few Dolphins games this year, I've noticed that the speakers in the blue line room, I don't think have ever worked, but still don't work. Oh, they did work at one time. I'm not proposing to put into this budget, but perhaps in 2025, we can assess at what an estimate would be to get those working. And if there is any savings or some other like projects at the Flight Exec Center that could be considered or put forward for 2026.
Yeah, certainly we can do that. We were in the process. We had enough money left in our 2025 budget to try to attempt some repairs to that sound system, but it ultimately didn't make a big difference. The company that was in to do that work said, you know, this is the best you can do with what you've got. It's an older system. Not that it's that old, because it's only like less than 15 years old, but they must have maybe been a bit dusty off the shelf when they were installed. So yeah, definitely something that can be addressed in the next budget.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. If there are no other questions from council, I'd just like to ask one thing, go back to trails just for a minute. The trail study is done and we have fairly extensive trails out, but will that also address some of the maintenance issues and the some of the spots on the trail that really need rehabilitation?
Yes, through you. So included in a master plan update will be surveying of the community and getting their input on all things regarding trails, including maintenance and upkeep and whatnot, and identifying even what we could be doing differently or how we can be approaching it in a different way to stay better on top of those items.
Good. And then this doesn't really, in so much a respect, have anything particularly to do with our budget. But, and I probably should have asked you this earlier, but do you have any idea how much money has been raised through the community donations towards the cost of the Flight Exec Center? Sorry, I know that that's getting you. I should have prepared you.
When I go back over to my computer there, I can pull up, unless Emily has access or Katie to that shared document in.
It's not critical. I was just
Teams?
wondering kind of a ballpark of
Yeah.
where we were at.
Well, and while they're looking, the one thing I'll say is since we've finished and put up from Banner Promotions, that beautiful donor recognition wall, people are seeing that and wanting to become a part of that. So it's not, oh, thank you. It's not common to get much in the way of donations once a project's done, but we are seeing donations continuing to come in as a result. And if you just give me one moment, please. It's opening. Okay, based on the number in front of me, it looks like thus far for donations, which includes the Parker family's generous donation, we're at 1.393 million.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry to get you with that one. I should have asked earlier. All right. If there are if there are not any other questions from the members of council for Mr. McDonald, I'll say thank you very much for your presentation. And then we will then move on to Director of Legislative Services, Gianna Nethercott.
Good morning. So Legislative Services has a total of 7 employees, which includes myself. Full-time, we have a deputy clerk and lottery licensing officer, the bylaw compliance officer, a customer service clerk, all located here in the municipal office. There are also a part-time records and customer service clerk in the Thorndale Lions Community Center, 2 crossing guards that share 1 position here in Dorchester, and we have 1 listed for Thorndale, which we are still trying to fill. So Legislative Services Department handles a wide array of duties, such as preparing agendas, minutes, and for council and its committees. We draft and prepare the bylaws, administer corporate records management program, provide commissioner of oath and other signing services. We issue licenses on behalf of the province, such as marriage licenses or lottery licenses. We officiate marriages both on and off the site, which was new in 2024, administer and conduct municipal and school board elections, as well as freedom of information requests in compliance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. In addition, we are responsible for bylaw compliance, such as property standards, animal control, and as well as frontline customer service at municipal office and again in Thorndale, which is also a newer service. Legislation, we follow a lot of the similar legislations that the CAO and council follow. It is not an exhaustive list. As you can see, the Municipal Act, Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, Municipal Elections Act, Planning Act, Drainage Act, and I could kind of go on for a while, but it is a little long. So our operating budget overview. Revenue, the majority of legislative services revenue comes from provincial offenses, which consists of infraction tickets issued by bylaw and compliance for things such as dog bite fines as a result of Part 3 prosecutions under zoning and other infractions. Licensing, it consists of marriages, lottery, kennel, dog licenses for dangerous dogs, as well as refreshment vehicle licensing. Bylaw enforcement revenues refer to fees that were introduced in 2024, such as applications for exemptions to the noise bylaw and administrative fees for issuing and registering orders under property standards, as well as some parking fines. And then marriages refer to the officiating of civil services and animal control, mainly our kennel licensing from there. So our largest expense is our salary and benefits. The bylaw enforcement expenses include legal fees and memberships and equipment. This year we purchased some dog kennels and things that we could get dogs with when they are on the loose, since our animal control kind of are based out of Brantford and are busy. So we bought a few things that way. And then our crossing guard expenses is generally the wages for the 2 crossing guards. Initiatives for 2025. Basically, we aren't spending any money mainly on initiatives, but we will be finalizing the council procedural bylaw review. We are updating our animal control bylaw and refreshment vehicle license bylaws. These are actually already in progress, and we will be moving forward with them hopefully early in the new year. We also believe there'll be more bylaw reviews coming in 2025, but these are the top of our list at this point. We also have been working on a privacy policy for freedom of information requests and dissemination of records policies. This will assist staff with knowing what information can be given quickly and freely to the public and what information needs to go through a request. So that's a pretty big policy that the deputy clerk has been working on, as well as following in the footsteps of the county, a policy on artificial intelligence use. And also, since we are getting close to the 2026 election, we are starting preparations for that. We are already in the process of securing voter vendors, as well as preparing the material for all possible candidates. And that's the end of my little section. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Janet. Any questions from the members of council on the clerk's report? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one question. I know that the bylaw and the rest of your team has been very busy with animals. We'll generalize it in the past year. I was just wondering, there was a minimal expense under the sheep and poultry, which I know that a few claims had been put forth. I was just wondering if you could explain that process.
Sure. So the province changed the process for the Ontario Compensation Fund for Damage from Wildlife, in which that it actually is a zero, pretty much a zero out for municipalities. So all we pay for would be the valuer who would go out and take photos, do the paperwork regarding any kills that have happened. They submit the paperwork to us. We submit it to the province. We pay them $100 fee and mileage, and then the province decides the cost of these poultry and sheep. They send us the money, then we send the money off to the farmer. Along with the funds that come in, we get paid a $50 administration fee, so it offsets half the cost of the viewer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Heeman?
I just, thank you, Your Worship. I just found that interesting about our animal control agent being in Brantford. I,
They're technically located in Zora Township, but they spend a lot of time in Brantford because they do a lot of municipalities. There are not a lot of places around that do this. We are coming close to the end of our contract, so we are going to be looking for new providers, or we'll having to open it up, searching for quotes in 2025.
thank you.
We did train our previous bylaw compliance officer for animal capture. So hopefully we are recruiting for a new one, and we will either be training them or hopefully they can come trained. So it just helps make more timely captures for our residents.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, then thanks very much, Jenna, for your report. The next item will be finance. Is there a need amongst council or staff to take a 10-minute refreshment break? Okay, let's recess for 10 minutes then, and we'll be back here at 10:27. Okay, thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, if we could call the meeting back to order shortly. Sarah, let me know when we're ready to go live. Okay, all right. All right then. So welcome back, and we'll ask our Director of Finance to lay it on us. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As we proceed, we're going to talk about financial services and our department here. So, oh, I guess I have to do it. Sorry. So as you can see, we are a team of 7. It is small but a mighty group, with each of us having a bit of a specialized area in finance. So if we start on the left-hand side, we have the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector, Diane Gallinger, who's been here for a number of years. And as you may all are aware, she is retiring early next year. So we were very thankful for her many years of service, and we look forward to having a smooth transition in the early 2025. Just to give you a sense, she processes about 13,500 property tax bills a year. And of course, as the municipality is growing, so is that number. If we move along, we have the payroll and benefits specialist, which is Tammy Hunter, who oversees our employee payroll, our council payroll, as well as our volunteer firefighter payroll. So that's about 200 individual employees per year. Moving along, we have our financial analyst, Katie Harrison, who's joined us today because she's part of our budget preparation, as well as in the new year, she will switch over to more of our audit preparations. So we're excited for that change. Then we just moving along, we have our GIS technician, asset management special and assistant, Megan Fletcher, who helps oversees all of our asset management and the creation of our asset management plan. And just to give you a sense there, our assets have a replacement cost of about $427 million. So that is quite the asset portfolio that we oversee and manage as part of the asset management plan, but then of course during our year-end process with tangible capital assets. Moving along, we have our accounts coordinator, Jenica Hart, who helps oversee accounts payable, for which processes about 5,000 invoices a year. And of course, that number is growing as well. And then, of course, we have our AR side, which is about 10,500 invoices. Then, of course, with our accounts receivable, we also have our utility billing, which is Sherry Ridsdale. And there's about 18,000 bills that we send out a year. So that's water and wastewater. Just in terms of a department overview, financial services is the backbone of the municipality's financial operations. We oversee municipal finances, develop the budgets, complete the financial statements, the annual audit, oversee asset management, administer payroll and benefits, as well as the management, billing, and collection of all accounts receivable and accounts payable. So of course, this includes our largest source of revenue, property taxes, as well as utilities and drainage. We also assist in the annual reporting for the Dorchester Union Cemetery. And of course, our commitment lies in maintaining financial stability, transparency, and compliance in the highest standard. Speaking of compliance, we do have a heavily regulated area in financial services, so between federal, provincial, municipal, and regulatory standards, as well as bylaws. Some of the areas that we refer to regularly are the Municipal Act, Income Tax Act, Planning Act, Public Sector Accounting Standards. It's a very regulated industry. When looking at our 2025 budget, our operating budget overview, there's about 2.5 million in revenue. This is largely comprised of the OMPF grant funding. Although it's shown in Financial Services Costing Center, it is actually allocated throughout the organization. So it's not just solely going to financial services, as well as the other main driver there is the interest we earn in our bank account. Again, just centrally located for revenue purposes, but obviously distributed throughout supporting the entire operating budget. Similar to other areas of administration, our largest expense would be salaries, wages, and benefits. In terms of 2025 initiatives, big one that the council is familiar with is a transition to new auditors for the fiscal year ending 2024. That transition will happen very quickly at the start of 2025. We also have the completion of the asset management plan, which has been mentioned earlier today. This update is required by July 1st of 2025, and that will include a capital financing strategy, which has not been included in previous versions because it wasn't required for legislation standards. We also are looking to implement some new or enhanced financial policies, such as the investment policy and the reserve fund policy. These were identified during our 2023 audit and also just during regular operations, so we will work to implement those in 2025. Two other items to note, just in terms of initiatives for 2025, we have our debt issuance, which would be related to King Street, Hamilton, Oakwood, drains, and the flight exec. Right now, that's looking at about over 6.6 million that we'd be looking to issue in debt for various projects, of course. And then, of course, always we're looking at continuous improvement for processes within financial services to find more efficiencies and as also cost-saving measures. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions from the members of council? Wow, I'm impressed. Oh, okay. Oh, maybe that's not so good. Okay, Councillor Crockett, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try and wrap it all up into one question here, and it mainly pertains to justifying the reduced budget with the anticipation, I assume, from a higher income from like grants and interest income, perhaps rebates for green energy, stuff like that. So I was just wondering if you could touch on that, as I did notice kind of the reduced budget for 2025 in more like the general area, I guess, which probably isn't yours per se. But just perhaps expanding on like the incoming revenues that we anticipate through other avenues outside of taxation.
Through the mayor to the councillor, I'm assuming you're referring to kind of that general government overview page that kind of combines all of the different areas. Sure. So when we're looking at the 2024 budget compared to the 2025 budget numbers there on the general government overview page, you will see that there is a decrease, as you worded it, for 2025. This is largely due to a higher interest income that's projected in 2025. As you recall, in 24, we started to recognize more of our actual interest income earned in our budget, as opposed to kind of keeping it straight line, because we've seen such higher returns in investments and interest. So with the 2025, we wanted to recognize that based on the prior 2 years, as well as I indicated, the implementation of an investment management policy and strategy in 25. We're anticipating higher revenue there as well as the OMPF funding. We were very happy to hear that we were getting an additional 125,000, I believe, in 2025. So that's helped to increase those revenue sources. That's predominantly where you're going to see that swing, is that for just general government, as to why there's that change between 24 to 25.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Lockie.
Through your worship. We had a previous discussion about the wastewater in terms of the interest. And so just kind of calling out that, so there was no budget for interest based on the reserve. So I think that we need to adjust the interest section in your department to reflect that there'll be less interest revenue here, but there'll be more revenue on the wastewater.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, we could adjust the interest line item within the operating budget to allocate those out to wastewater or water. That would then impact the property tax levy. Conversely, we conservatively estimated the interest income for 2025. So we could just also add those lines in for wastewater and water and make the corresponding changes in terms of transfers to reserves with projected surpluses. So it's really up to council if you want us to change this number, and then that would change the levy, or we can recognize that additional revenue in water and wastewater.
I guess my question goes back to you. So if you think what we have in here is enough to cover, the change to the wastewater, I'm okay with leaving it as it is.
So through the mayor to the councillor, yes, I do think that the number of 830,000 still conservative for interest that we have earned, because if you look back in 2023, we almost had 1.1 million in interest, and then in 24, those actuals shown there are only as of October 31st, and they're already at 760,000. So it's likely that we would be able to achieve that and just add the additional interest in for water and wastewater separately disclosed, and then of course make that note for 2026 to do it accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Director.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. That was painless. Thank you, Emily. So next, we'll ask our Director of Fire and Emergency Services, Chief Dorkin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There we are. Okay, today I'm here as Director of Fire and Emergency Services and Fire Chief to present to you the 2025 proposed fire services budget. As you know, we have two fire stations, Station 1 and 2, respectively Dorchester and Thorndale stations. This is where they're located. District Chief Tim Churchill is leader of operations at Station 1 in Dorchester, and District Chief Wes Fox is respective District Chief in Thorndale. We have 35 firefighters. We have allotment for 35 firefighters in Dorchester and 25 in Thorndale. In the province of Ontario, the three lines of defense for fire services are public education first, followed by fire inspections and code enforcement, and then emergency response. And that's how we like to develop and oversee our entire fire service as an organization. Other services that you know us well for are for fire suppression. We investigate fires as well. We're also in charge of emergency management for municipality. We attend hazardous materials responses and spills. We're also taking care of code enforcement as well. With the fire service, we are regulated under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, the FPPA, from 1997. So that's our guiding document that much of our service stems from. We also have a lot to do with all of the other guiding acts down in the second paragraph from the HTA, EPA, Occupational Health and Safety Act as well, and the Municipal Act. Here's a high-level overview of our 2025 proposed operating budget. You see on the left-hand side that we do have a list of proposed revenue, which is based on 5-year averages and current trends. Then our expenses and net costs on the right-hand side as well. You see from the table here that typically the Dorchester station is showing some higher numbers than the Thorndale side, just due to call volume, amount of personnel assigned to the station and such. 2025 initiatives. Well, last year we finished our fire master plan, and that brought about a lot of analysis into how we take a look at our next 10 years of the fire service. So with that comes a lot of proposed further analysis and evaluation of how our services are operating and where we can take them from there. Biggest topic for 2025, continuing on from previous years, is certification training. So the province has mandated back several years ago that the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, be adopted as the guiding body for the certification levels for fire service. So with one of the benchmarks being in 2026, July 1st, 2026, is a deadline for all firefighters to become certified in the province. So with that comes a lot of work, especially with our volunteers, with their day jobs, careers, and whatnot, to have our firefighters attend a lot more, we'll say, increased level of training in order to reach these certification benchmarks. We've been doing well to tackle that. So first off, all of our recruit firefighters that, as of 3 or 4 years ago, when they were hired, they were sent to our regional training center, Elgin Middlesex, and between their first January and June, they attend some pretty intensive firefighter training, and they culminate with a certification level in firefighter level 1 and firefighter level 2, which is recommended from the province in order to be a full service fire department. With that also encompasses hazardous materials, awareness and operations training, along with a bunch of other endeavors such as public education training, basic fire prevention tactics as well. that gives them a real good handle of how to come into our service. With that, that takes care of all of our new folks. All of our existing folks also have to be certified. That comes with a little bit more of a challenge because there's been a lot of heavy lifting we've had to do over the last year to get us to a certification benchmark, which we actually just recently attained in this past September as a very significant step in the certification benchmarking. That brought us firefighter level 1 and 2 certification. Again, reaching the benchmark of 2026, we also have to have hazardous materials awareness and operations training and pump operations training. 2025 will bring us, we will reach the finish line of pump operations training and hazardous materials awareness and operations training as well. Therefore, by the end of 2025, we should be well ahead of the 2026 deadline for this. Along with that, and I'll jump down several bullets, officer development training. I just recently spoke of the firefighter level training. With that, any officer rank or supervisor on scene needs to also complete quite a bit of training as well. So we're trying to be as responsible as possible and get ahead of, again, that 2026 deadline, making sure our officers are attending incident safety officer training, fire officer level 1 or 2, depending on their rank, and fire instructor level as well. So again, more and more of these courses that the province is asking us to reach a certain level, we'll say, and we're doing well with tackling that goal. Moving down, we're taking a closer look at where our apparatus type and where they are located as well, based on our current complement, and investigating fire service best trends with where we would like to go in the future. Where we have multiple mutual and automatic aid agreements that we're revisiting for 2025, refreshing them, evaluating them to see if they make the most sense for the municipality. Ongoing standard operating guideline and policy development and standardization, making sure both stations are concurrent with each other and their interoperations are heading together in the right direction. I already touched on the officer development, and that goes along with our corporate initiatives for continuous improvement as well. Trying to develop a learning culture in our fire service so that we're maybe the next time the province decides that we have to head towards an increased level of certification, we're already embracing that mindset. Taking a look at tanker shuttle accreditation, that's an exploratory program that we can see where we're at with our current complement of water delivery, and overall from a very high level tanker shuttle accreditation helps with insurance for our residents and taxpayers. And then the last bullet there, just continuing to develop different operational tactics, from drone operations to specialty rescue disciplines, water, ice rescue, hazardous materials response, motor vehicle collisions as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Chief Dorkin. Any questions from the members of council? Councillor Lockie.
Through your worship, to the director, I think I know the answer to this question already, but I noticed that, you talked about the need for training, but your training budget went down quite a bit. Is that just because you were able to get ahead of the curve so much this fiscal year?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, I believe that's overall we've taken a look at the last several years and tried to get a better idea on averages. With this one's tough because you have to throw in the tuition costs, but then really the wages behind that, all of the staff hours that have to go into that really impacts it. So this budget line, I believe, had a really closer look into averages over the last 5 years to see, are we being responsible with that increase or decrease? That's where we landed.
Okay, so you're 100% confident there'll be enough to cover all your training needs?
We will have to take a closer look. I know in this past year, knowing that we had so much certification training to throw at our our training wall. We were adding on courses and adding on courses as they came, and wherever people's windows could fit them in, that's where we put them. We will have to tighten the lens on this one to see where we're at as we go for booking courses.
Okay.
That helps to answer that one.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Heeman.
Thank you for your presentation, Chief Dorkin. I was wondering, we got the presentation about reclaiming some service call costs through insurance. I was just wondering where that might show up on this budget.
Thank you for the question, Councillor, through the mayor. This, as a part of the Firemark Inc. program, they request that we create a new budget line, which I'm working with finance to develop, because they are very responsible in saying where those funds, those recovered costs must go. Likely, we will see this end up in its own budget line for capital initiatives or directed towards training. But I've got to liaison with some staff about where we're going to pocket that. So far, we only have one example of successful completion for cost recovery since the council approved that plan.
So, Your Worship, I'm just wondering if you have an estimated, I know you just mentioned there's one data point is not a trend line, but do you have a rough forecast of what you think you might collect?
That's a very difficult one to answer. I would suggest, to be very conservative, I would suggest we would be in the nature of $10,000 to $30,000 annually recovery, and that's based on municipal sized comparators throughout the province. However, that could swing up and that could swing down depending on the amount of calls that we're getting. Hopefully our fire prevention does its job and we don't have any property damage in our municipality. And it also depends on the property claims insurance fire service coverage for that particular claim as well. I can only speak to the one which does, like you said, doesn't count for a trend, but we received $1,000 in fire service coverage.
Thank you. And through Your Worship, I think, the allocation towards capital fund and training are good ideas. And I think as we refer back to our earlier conversation about the capital levy, we know there's an identified need for a renovation or new build for Dorchester. And so that's one of those unforeseen expenses that we might want to consider.
Deputy Mayor Smybert.
Thank you. I know that we have an active association. I'm just wondering what the $3,000 is for. It's an expense to the association.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The renaming of several lines, we took a bit of a deeper dive this past year in what these funds are for. That line ended up being a lot of items in the past. So trying to clean that up a little bit, you'll see a reduction on that one. Before that took into account our awards banquet, yearly awards banquet. It also took into account a lot of uniform purchases. So as you see that line reduces a little bit, you might see the uniform budget go up a little ways. And then along with the awards banquet, any rewards gifts for retirees as well also came from that. So whereas that one will decrease a little bit, others may increase a little bit in the proposal.
Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Has there been any monetary impacts with the Dorchester Road overpass being closed the past 8-ish months?
through the mayor to the councillor, no, there has not been. And we took a good long look at how we would adjust our operations before the road closure, and we decided that we would not change anything, and nothing has been impacted because of that. Maybe slightly longer response times getting to the 401 and areas just south of the 401 on Dorchester Road. However, no monetary impacts because of that.
Thank you.
Just a general question for you, Nick. When you're talking about hazardous training and all that sort of thing for the firefighters, is there much emphasis on the potential of vehicle battery fires? Is that a topic of conversation, or is that something sort of down the road?
Thank you, Mayor. Great question. Yes, along with the more electric vehicles on our highways, on our streets, and just lithium ion and new alternative fuels in general, there is a lot of learning curves that we're embracing as a fire service. You will see a proposed capital submission for materials that will help us combat any electric vehicle fires that we might come across, which are on the trend upwards. Again, a little bit of different combustion that the fire service has had to deal with over the last several hundred years. So now we're seeing more and more batteries in people's homes, being stored in garages, on the streets, and trying to hit that one head on so that we're ahead of the curve with training.
Because I can foresee maybe building codes having to change for parking in garages attached to homes.
There is the potential for
Yeah.
that, yes.
Exactly. Good. Thanks very much. Any other questions from council? Well, thank you, Nick, then. That's good.
Thank you very much.
So we'll call on our Director of Planning and Development Services, Amanda Story, to present.
Thank you, through you, Mayor and members of council. I'm here to present to you the operating budget overview for the department, which is the Planning and Development Services. The department has 6 full-time employees in the main municipal office, which consists of the Director of Planning and Development Services, Chief Building Official and Risk Management Official, who is responsible for issuance of building permits, averaging around 250 submissions per year. The Deputy Chief Building Official, responsible for a majority of the inspections. A Cemetery Development Services Assistant being 0.5 FTE, who assists with any of the needs from the department, including booking inspections, scanning. Full-time Senior Planner, which is an available job opportunity currently undergoing a formal hiring process, and a contracted service for 4 days a week support by a county planner. At this time, we have 2 county planners supporting the department, being 2 days a week and 4 days a week in total. The Planning and Development Department manages growth and development in the municipality through the processing of planning and building permit applications, respectively, through the planning and building divisions. The department has many legislators they have to follow, including the Planning Act, Provincial Planning Statement, Official Plans, Site Plan, Control Area Bylaw, Zoning Bylaw, Development Charges Act, Conservation Authorities Act, Fence Bylaw, OBC, which is the Ontario Building Code, and the Act, as well as the Sign Bylaw, Property Standards Bylaw, Building Bylaw, Radio Communications Act, Ministry of Natural Resources Act, and the Property Standards Bylaw. The operating budget overview in front of you provides a visual of the proposed expenses at $339,903. an estimated $130,200 in revenue. The budget summary in front of us does not include the building division as outlined under protective services with a budget of 489,676. It's to be noted that the building department is cost recovery, so transfer to and from reserves to maintain that balance. The building permit development charges are outlined in the reserves and development charges tab as well. So that being said, the proposed 2025 budget is $209,703 for planning services. Wages and benefits are the highest proposed expense in 2025, with all the hopes in the increase of planning and development activity to hopefully heighten those numbers up for application counts and planning fees to come in. The 2024 planning revenue was impacted due to a lower count of planning applications between 2023 and 2024 as a trend. To add, based on the direction of the processing of fees when an application is deemed complete, it directly impacts the actuals versus the analysis of the revenue, and based on the number of applications per year. So in which we have budgeted based on those trends. Sorry. The next slide we have in front of us are our 2025 initiatives, including the process automation, which involves the transition from citywide software, which is what we use for building permits, to the integration of cloud permit, which will aid in operating efficiencies, reduce administrative burdens, enhance customer service, and connect planning and building applications and communications in one software. It enables a more streamlined, transparent, and data-driven approach to managing planning applications and permits, making it a valuable tool to enhance service delivery and modernize departmental processes, even more than we already have. An additional software proposed to be implemented in 2025 is through government frameworks, which will be across all departments to assist in the automation of workflows. Both software implementations mentioned ultimately align with Strategic Plan Initiative 2A. The department aims to undergo a bylaw review with the goal of transparent governance by reviewing the existing and proposed bylaws for further analysis and land use and development compliance measures. We aim to review the sign bylaw to ensure the text is in layman's terms. The building fee study requires, that's mentioned in the third initiative, a formal study where we intend to hire a consultant who specializes in municipal finance and building permit management to conduct the study and provide tailored recommendations. Planning reports align with Strategic Plan 1B, where the planning department aims to prepare quarterly planning reports outlining items such as application counts and development status, including any metrics as recommended to aid in planning and development communications. Projections for subdivisions and market trends are tough to predict. However, should the draft plan approved developments commence, we could see planning, building, and development charges increase our reserves and revenue respectively. At this time, we've only issued 28 residential units, so still maintaining the trend of the previous year. That includes all permit types such as mobile homes, single detached, and additional residential units. So that number does not include a full amount of DCs that were collected, as some aren't applicable. The planning workshop initiative, if interest is gained, the goal is to hire a consultant to lead a planning workshop for the members of council and staff, if necessary, to address the new PPS together. The community improvement plan was approved and implemented this year, and which has gone smoothly so far. We've had applicants come through, and the social media engagement through communications, thank you, Michael, has gained traction, and we've been receiving inquiries. So looking to continue administrating and communicating with the public for consultations. And any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. So we'll start with the Deputy Mayor.
Through the mayor. In terms of the purchase of the software for the building permits, is that taken out of the building reserve? Or can it be? Or is it planned to come out of the levy?
Right now, it's planned to come out of the levy. It's through a software line on the budget. Let's pull that up here. So right now, it's under contracted services in the operating budget. That That's where cloud or citywide originally came out of. Looking for further clarification if needed.
No, that's helpful. I just wanted to know if that could be an option to take it out of the reserve as opposed to the levy.
Yeah, that can be an option.
Okay. Any other questions for planning and development? Okay. Thanks very much, Amanda.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss someone?
I guess if we'll need a motion then if we want to change that. So is it appropriate then for me to move a motion that the purchase of the cloud software come out of the building reserve as opposed to the levy?
All right, we have a motion and Councillor Heyman, you're seconding that motion. All right, so therefore all in favor? Okay, and none opposed, so that carries. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Amanda, thank you. Great. Hardworking Mr. Craven, next. Boy, we're gonna load you up with questions then, Jared, so be prepared. It's either, it's it's either that or jump on the snowplow. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. My name is Jared Craven. I'm the Director of Public Works, and I'll speak to you a little bit about the Public Works Department right now. Currently, the Public Works Department consists of 3 separate departments: the Transportation, the Environmental Services, and the Drainage Department. Myself at the top as a director, I have 3 superintendents that report to me. Transportation Superintendent is Jake McKillop. Environmental Services Superintendent is Kevin Wilson. Drainage Superintendent is Travis Pitt. And our engineering technologist is Tanner Stanton. Tanner is not a superintendent, but he helps me out with the day-to-day, I guess, needs and duties of public works. He's very valuable. We have a great crew, and all of them are very valuable. Transportation Department, we have the road foreman, who is Jeff Parkins, and then we have 9 equipment operators, and then 2 winter patrollers. With the what do you call it? The roads department there are unionized. The Environmental Services, Kevin Wilson, reporting to him are 4 licensed water operators. The solid waste operator, he's 1 full-time, and then a part-time solid waste operator that oversee the waste department and the landfill site. Travis department is, as he'll tell you, a one-man show, but does the work of 4 people. And again, Tanner Stanton helping out with all the departments and myself. The Public Works Department provides a wide range of services to stakeholders, departments in charge of operating, maintaining, and renewing municipal infrastructure such as roads, bridges, culverts, drinking water supply. We also look after the water treatment and distribution systems, the wastewater collection and treatment systems, storm drainage, and municipal drains. Solid waste collection is in our group as well, and recycling collections and landfill operations. We also oversee the municipal fleet and manage all public works related capital projects. Tapping down right into the transportation services, where the department provides the following services: road operations and maintenance as per Reg 23902, which is the minimum maintenance standards. And the operations include culvert and ditch maintenance, line painting, hard surface and gravel surface roads, dust suppression, sidewalk maintenance, roadside grass cutting, street sweeping, traffic control signs, as well as winter maintenance that you've all seen here the last week. We also look after small construction projects within the municipal road allowance that don't need to be contracted out, as well as streetlights. Again, if they're contracted out, but we oversee streetlights as well. There's approximately 360 kilometers of roadway in Thames Center. Of those 360 kilometers, 160 are gravel and 198 are hard surface. Moving over to the environmental services. The environmental services own and operate the water treatment systems. That means the water treatment plants as well as the distribution system. We have we're a certified, we have certification to run and operate both of those, or sorry, both drinking water systems in Dorchester and Thorndale. In the water treatment and distribution systems, they look after their day-to-day activities are water sampling, monitoring, reporting, and inspections, fire hydrant flushing, maintenance, and repair, rebuild, planned and unplanned work. We have a overall responsible operator and standby operators 24/7 of the time for midnight calls, anything. Everybody has a pager. We look after the wastewater collection system, just the monitoring part of that, and the waste management. That's the garbage and recycling and landfill operations that I spoke of before. As far as the water system, we have approximately 3,000 water customers between the Dorchester and Thorndale systems, and approximately 1,322 active wastewater customers. The drainage department, overseen by Travis Pitt. Travis manages municipal drains and storm sewer maintenance. He reports to council on drainage issues. He handles drainage act petitions, assists landowners on solutions, prepares OMAFA grants, and acts as a liaison during construction projects. He also provides compliant drainage practices and engages with the Land Improvement Contractors of Ontario, or LICO, and he reviews the development drawings along with the Public Works Department. Legislation that our department follows under is, like say, it's highly regulated. We look after we have to abide by the Operational Health and Safety Act, Municipal Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, Water Resource Act, Navigable Water Act, ECAs, Drinking Water Works permits, Municipal Drinking Water licenses, permit take waters, and CLI ECAs. As far as the roads department, the Highway Traffic Act and Occupiers Liability Act, road classifications, minimum maintenance standards, and drainage, as well as CLI ECA. In our operating budget this year, look after transportation revenue. That consists of grants, the Aggregate Resource Act grants that we get annually, and the gas tax. That's what makes up transportation revenue. Environmental services, as you know, it'd be rates, and fleet, it would be nothing. Expenses, transportation would be numerous expense accounts, from dust suppression to salt to line painting. It's a long list of expenses. Environmental services would be, wages and materials, and fleet would be maintenance and fuel. 2025 initiatives. First is Cobble Hills Road resurfacing. That $1 million is shared between Cobble Hills and other smaller projects that we have in line. The Cobble Hills Road project our portion of that project is $400,000, shared with Zora Township because it's a boundary road. The second one is culverts. We usually have a budget amount for culverts and bridge restoration or repairs. Culvert number 105, which is on Dingman Drive, that'll be replaced this year. And Bridge 21, which is on Fairview Road, we're looking at an assessment on that to see, talk to the consultant to see what the next step for that bridge would be. Next one will be Upper Queen Street urbanization. That is, as you know, that's where in 2024 we are approved for the design. Design is almost complete and hoping for construction in 2025, pending council's approval. Thorndale Road urbanization, that's been broken into kind of a 2-year segment, and that's just urbanize Thorndale Road from White Creek Bridge to Missouri Road. And that's the main portion of that is storm sewers, to put a storm sewer network on that section there. Moving into the fleet, Unit 45 is the large Caterpillar compactor at the landfill site, looking to purchase another used compactor for that. Unit 54 is a single axle plow truck that has come at end of life, and 65 is a ice resurfacer at the Dorchester Arena. Last one is the long-term water supply study. That is just to enhance the water and wastewater master servicing plan that was completed in 2019. This is just to enhance or update that plan to see what the next step is for the Dorchester and Thorndale water supply as we move into the future. And lastly, Pump Station 3 West Sewer construction. That's a construction that's a carry-on of 2024. We'll be constructing this year, and we received a little over $1 million grant for that wastewater project. I see that there's no questions, so thank you very much.
Oh, wait a minute. Thank you, Jared. Are there any questions from the members of council? Well, look at all the questions. We'll start with the deputy mayor.
Thank you to the mayor. I believe that this work has already commenced, but it's the work that involves Dorchester Road and the storm, excuse me, the storm study. Because we've had quite a few questions about the future of the connection between the boardwalk subdivision and the urban area of Dorchester. So can you just kind of talk to us or walk us through what the proposed plan of action is there, what the timelines are, whether it's a 2025 or it could be sooner? Probably not sooner, but if you
Sure.
could just answer that. Thank you.
Through your worship, very good question, Deputy Mayor. Currently, the Dorchester drain is being designed right now. In that drain design, it was a council approved project there this year that we incorporate the urbanization of Dorchester Road. So Dorchester Road urbanization, meaning curb, gutter, sidewalks, etc., was part of that design. We've asked we've asked the designer to, when we build the drain, which will come first, incorporate a sidewalk or an active transportation pathway to connect those two, as you spoke of, from Byron Ave to the boardwalk. So that's our anticipation, or sorry, that's our intent rather, to have a sidewalk connecting those two streets there during the construction of the drain.
Thank you. I think I saw another hand. Anyway, we'll go over to Councillor Crockett then.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for asking that. One off my list, Jared. I was curious in regards to the fleet. We just had, I'm going to get the name wrong, the Green Initiative study that is being proposed at tonight's council meeting. I was curious to know the replacement and additional fleet vehicles required. Has that been considered for probably not these replacements, but as going forward, will that be referred to for upgrades on fleet vehicles?
Through your worship, great question. And yes, the short, I'll never give a short answer, but we have with development, we've part of the DCs, we purchased a tandem axle truck back in 2021 to help maintain the extra subdivisions being brought online. Through the Green Initiative, a lot of the diesel trucks, which is the majority of our fleet, are one of the bigger, I guess, consumers. Right now, we're looking at those, but there still hasn't been a a good green option for the large diesel trucks that work for us. The smaller ones, smaller fleet vehicles, we're considering those once we have end of life vehicles. Yeah, that's definitely going to be looked at.
Perfect. I have one more question and then a comment, if that's okay. My next question is, could you just touch on what the large increase is at the Catherine Street pump station, I believe it is?
Sure. Through your worship, the Catherine Street pump station, as you know, it totals about 22 or 23 units or homes. It's a it's not private. It's a small system that works on its own. That one-time expense is just to upgrade some electrical and some plumbing inside that little that system itself.
Perfect. And then I'll just end on a positive note. I like to see that there's going to be a lot of work being done in the Thorndale area. I know that that's kind of percolated over the past few years, that maybe they felt neglected in the roads department, and it looks like that's going to be in their favor this year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett. Councillor Heeman.
I just want to say thank you for those, as Councillor Crockett's alluded to, the urbanization projects in the Upper Queen and Thorndale. And just to note though that the Thorndale Road construction won't occur until 2026. Am I correct in that, having read the business case?
That's correct. We're still in the design mode, and working with the county. Again, it's a county road, so we're working in conjunction with the county on the design. So we're anticipating a 2026 construction period.
Yeah, but it's a larger project, so we're financing it over 2 years.
That is correct.
And again, I think it's timely work, like not only because it will activate the crosswalk at Brooker and Aspen, but also that just this past week I got some drainage emails. So I think that that's very applicable, that there's drainage funds going towards that. And so thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heyman. Any other questions from the members of council? Okay, that was too easy, Jared. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So we'll move on to item number 6.1, proposed operating and capital budget. And David, you're presenting? Go ahead.
That's great. Thank you. So with the presentations, learn this trick from Councillor Crockett. With the presentations completed, you have before you the report referencing the proposed operating capital budget for 2025. I'm not sure if everyone has it before them, but for the public's purpose, the recommendation is broken down into several parts for council to consider reviewing and approving in bulk, or as well as separating line by line. I know that there has been a couple motions passed so far with respect to councillor pay as well as the cloud permit software. With those two adjustments made by this council already, that reduces the levy request by 0.4%. So the total now before you is actually 3.1% consideration. 1% of that being the capital infrastructure levy for consideration. 1.5% of that is with respect to the phase-in of OPP costs as well. Hoping that the presentation provided the bulk of the information. However, I will note a couple of other items that council referred to this meeting. The other one was the remuneration for fire services. That's been included as to help address that issue, has been included as part of this budget, and that's a $1 increase, an additional $1 increase to the volunteer fire service for 2025. Council may recall there was a $1 increase in 24 as well. So continuing to make strides to move our volunteers up with respect to market adjustment. The Thorndale Community Center expansion, there was a motion passed by council at the November 18th meeting. This proposed budget that you have before you as well includes $240,000 transfer from the Thorndale Lions Community Center deferred revenue account. Is incorporated to be put towards the design of a potential expansion there. So those are the items that council's referred to this. Has been included. You may have heard me mention already with respect to the OPP, we were advised a couple of months ago with respect to a 20% OPP billing increase, which equates to 3% on our levy. The province has since come back and stated basically the implementation of that rate will occur in 2026, hence our recommendation to phase that in. Of course, council has the option to do any variety of 0 to 3 or none this year and all 3% next year, but we know that that bill is coming regardless, and then our advice is to phase it in to soften the impact in any single year. The flight expansion capital project as well as an item for consideration. Last year, council may recall there was a 2% levy added to help fund the debt charges related to this project. A total of 4% was required. It's about $500,000 annual repayment of that loan. So far, council has half of that repayment funded. And today, as part of this budget, we'll need to secure how the remaining will need to be funded. Our recommendation, again, is that it can be and should be funded from development charges to alleviate the levy pressures, as well as its eligibility for development charges as it is related to growth in the community. Once again, however, council can forego this recommendation, not allocate 50% to DCs, and consider adding a portion to levy as well. I referenced the capital projects also. There's 23 capital projects being recommended, but with an understanding we've got about 27 projects we're still working on carried over from previous years. So 50 is plenty for staff to be working on. And one main one, as we talked about, Thorndale Road is going to be phased out 25, 26. So that will certainly keep us busy. With that, Mayor, myself and members of the senior management team are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Smybert.
Great, thank you. And this is to CAO Barrick. My question was, I know that Watson came back and said that we could use 60% of the costs to be allocated to DCs for the expansion of the rec center. I know the recommendation is 50%. Just wanting to know why the difference there.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the deputy mayor. My understanding is we didn't have that confirmation from Watson this time last year. So last year, council approved the 50%, and then we got the confirmation, I understand, after that. But certainly, yes, council does have the option to move it up to 60%, I think is the maximum. Is that right, Emily or Steve?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it's we can take up to 62% through the DCs for the flight exec expansion.
So is there a reason why we shouldn't do that? I mean, I know that we're not flush with that account, but I think if we have the ability, then I think we should maximize that.
Thank you. Through the mayor, the only consideration from a staff perspective is that, in particular, recreation is 2.5 million overdrawn already in development charges, and so we're looking to get out of that hole, so to speak, for recreation. As well, we bring in about $1 to $4 million in development charges annually. 4 million being the highest, and right now the last couple of years have been 1 million. Assuming a minimum of 1 million. 250,000 would automatically get carved out towards this loan repayment, leaving 750 remaining for other development charge projects. So those are some other considerations for council's thought process and then decision making. Although yes, it is council's purview on how to share the proportion.
That's good. Any follow-ups? No.
No, I'm good with that. I have another question, but I'll wait until it's my turn again.
Anyone else with a question? Danielle.
So it's going to be kind of difficult to word this, but just regarding the capital. So there were some lines for wastewater, because obviously I'm concerned about, the wastewater. And, we didn't really get into deep discussion because I'm okay with the budget. But there were some large expenses that are coming out of the reserve to fund growth related projects. So we just had some email correspondence. So I just want to confirm with staff that those will come from reserves, or so those will come from DCs, not reserves.
Emily, you want to? Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Sure. Through the mayor to the councillor. Yes, you're referring to particularly the wastewater services projects in the capital budget. Yes, so currently they're disclosed as showing reserve funding, and also for the one we have the grant funding. With those projects, we do anticipate they'll continue on into future years. So we were planning to take the DC draws in future years. However, if council would like us to disclose that change now, we can make that adjustment for the final version. It would just be a lower transfer from the wastewater capital reserve in 2025 and an increase from the wastewater DC reserve. It would further put the DC reserve into a deficit for 2025. But as you'll see in the projections, it's already going into about a $300,000 deficit due to annual debt payments. So it's a disclosure piece that we could just change in terms of for the final version for 25 budget, or we can just take the full allocation in 2026.
My recommendation would just for tracking purposes, it is a 98% growth related. It should come out of the DC. Do I need to make a motion for that?
Through the mayor. No, staff will do that. It's just an allocation. There's no impact to rates or levies or anything else, just where it's noted. We'll do that.
Okay, well, I think it does have a little bit of implication on the rates because the reserve collects interest. So I want to make sure that, you know, the reserve keeps a healthy level and so that the interest that's earned on that reserve stays in the reserve to, you know, keep it funded for the sake of, you know, replacing our current infrastructure and also inflationary increases.
So we're good. We don't need a motion. We're still. For action to stop. Yeah, okay. I'll
Okay,
note that.
thank you.
Any other questions? After the deputy mayor then.
Thank you. I'm going back to the tourism study in the amount of the $30,000 and given the financial pressures for the 2025 budget, I'm really wondering if that is something that we can defer until the next budget cycle. And I'm prepared to move that, but I want to get some input from council as well.
Do you have something you would like to say on this?
Yes, on
Okay,
this
go
topic.
right ahead.
I would be in agreement to defer that project only because I do think that we could amplify our work with Middlesex County more so on tourism. I know that Kara just came into the to speak with council last month, and they're doing I don't know, some internal visioning right now, but I think over the next year we perhaps can work with them on a more fulsome tourism piece that would include Thames Center, and then hopefully continuing communications with them on what businesses to highlight as well in Thames Center, so we can be more aligned in utilizing their services as well.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
So I'll move that we remove the tourism study in the amount of $30,000 from the budget.
And are you seconding then, Councillor? All right. Oh, would you like to speak to this?
If I may, Mayor, I just
Sure.
want to note, this particular item is listed in the strategic plan and, which is fine. But as a reminder, by the end of the term, staff haven't achieved it. We'll recall why it's not achieved. Thank you.
You still fine going forward? All right, so we have the motion and we have a secondary in Councillor Heeman. And also I'll call the vote. All in favor? All right, and none opposed, so that motion carries. Yes. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So I'm not sure what the total amount is in terms of savings. We've got the,
Oh, sorry. So 30,000, which then would bring the levy currently to 2.9%.
All right. Deputy Mayor Smyger.
sorry. So there was a cumulative though, right? There was a 30,000 for the tourism study and then the council wages and also, so what my motion was going to be is I would like to see that those savings on the levy be transferred to that capital, whatever percentage that is for the capital reserve fund amount.
So just to clarify, that's correct. Through the mayor to the deputy mayor, each action council's taken so far has resulted in about 0.2% reduction. So 0.6 in total currently from 3.5 to 2.9 approximately. And so, yeah, that leaves room for council to do anything else. I think that the motion with respect to the addition capital levy was deferred until now.
So just for clarity then, I think, does that bring us up to 1.6% that we can use because of the savings that we, like, I know we were talking about the 1.5, but I just think with the savings, in order to keep the levy the way that it is, I believe that we're in a position to move a motion that would be 1.6%.
Do we, sorry. Can we leave both of these on the table until we're done discussion and then, or are we done with everything else? Because I feel as though the impact that we would like to propose to the addition on the capital levy will be kind of the last thing that we want to put in place. Because I think we're all in the same way of thinking, is that we want to capitalize on the capital levy throughout this process. So I don't know.
All right, then, before we move to that, is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about regarding the budget before we get to this motion? Councillor Crockett.
Sorry, there's this one last standing initiative, I guess, that I will be vague on because I assume the conversation would need to take place in closed session. It would be future purchases by the municipality and how that would impact a levy for 2025.
And Councillor Heeman, did I see your hand up as well?
Well, I think if we have more in reserves, then that would give us more flexibility.
Anything else, Councillor Crockett?
No, I'm good to move forward with the deferred motions.
All right. Oh, did you want to take this one?
So do you want, well, the first, the deferred motion was that council for 1.5% capital levy. It's been moved and seconded, and you chose to defer it. So at that point, if you would to amend, it can be amended, friendly amendment. However, I am suggesting, because this may impacts the budget, we should probably delete one or another.
And if I may, Mayor, so for clarity, the current state, if this motion was passed, would be a 3.4% levy. We're at 2.9 currently. With the addition of the 0.5, 3.4 would be the current update thereafter.
All right. So you would like us to move to the deferred motion regarding the 1.5 and vote on that?
Correct.
All right. So we have the mover and the seconder. So I'll call the vote for the 1.5 increase to the capital infrastructure levy. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, so 3 opposed. So this one is defeated. The next motion from the deferment will be to, it's the same wording basically, but it would be 1.6. Do I have that right? All right. So
Could we have some
discussion on this?
discussion on this?
All right.
Mainly, can I ask a question?
I think you can. If
We've got a mover, just no seconder.
Yeah, we have a, yeah,
No, we don't have a seconder.
no, I know. So would you like me to go through that process? Okay, so it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Smiler. No. I moved it. Okay, so the, my goodness. Okay, so a seconder for that. Yeah. For the, if, it, to bring it forward to the 1.6% instead of the 1.5 that we just did. Am I saying that right?
Correct. There is no motion technically on the floor unless you're moving that.
All right,
It was just a discussion of the idea.
don't move it then
Okay.
in this particular case, discuss it. All right, who wants to speak first?
I will go ahead. I would like to ask staff a question on what the final levy would be if we were to increase the capital to 2%. Assumably, I think to fill in the blank there is 1.6 would bring us back up to the 3.5 that was originally proposed.
That's accurate through the mayor. So if we see the report with the recommendations, the receipt for information, the capital budget, after that, the operating budget listed in the report is 2.5%. With the reductions that council made today, that number is now 1.9. And so, and 1% for capital is 2.9. So council, depending on where you want to go, you've got that's how much room that council has. If that makes sense to members.
Councillor Heeman.
So the current operating is 1.9%. Council is basically talking about a 1% capital levy and bumping it up to an amount that you're having a conversation about.
I would like to
Councillor
make a
Heath.
motion to levy a 2% capital levy.
All right. So is there any other discussion before I ask this for a seconder? So that would make our total budget 3.9%, right? Exactly. Okay. So Councillor Heeman has moved that the capital infrastructure levy be amended to 2%. And a seconder for that, Deputy Mayor Smyberg. So call a question. All in favor? So there are none opposed, so that carries. So if we're ready to move on then, we can do the operating. Okay, so the operating budget will move instead of 2.5% to 1.9. I'm sorry, Dan, I've left that. Did we move that? Or was this a new motion?
No, there, you will need a motion to receive report number CAO 10-24 be received for information. And that the 2025 proposed operating budget be approved in principle at 1.9%.
So we have that move, secondary, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, did you have something
Yeah.
you wish to say?
No, I'll move it. I just had a question for the clerk though. So are we looking at approving these individually as opposed to the one motion as recommended in the report?
It appears to be, unless you would like to continue on with the rest. It's up to it's your call. We've already done the capital, so those two have been removed. So it's up to your decision whether you want to continue on with the rate studies, et cetera. They approved the capital levy. I would need, yeah, the capital budgets. No, I need to know, I need to know total. Is it the same total? Okay.
All right, so is it the will of council that we continue with the motion that it is here or break it out? Any discussions regarding wastewater? The recommended increases of 2.5. Otherwise, we'll
Yeah.
just do the whole motion.
I'll
Okay.
just make a comment to that because I know that most people look towards me for, kind of challenging the wastewater rates. So, I have done my own analysis. We didn't do a rate increase last year. And, I'm concerned that, we might not have enough to fund future projects. So I'm not saying I recommend this increase every year, but I'm okay with the recommended increase.
So Mayor, would you and council like me to read the entire motion then?
Yes, that would be a good idea.
Okay, so that report number CIO 10-24 be received for information, and that the 2025 proposed capital budget of $10,797,383 be approved in principle as presented, and that the 2025 proposed operating budget be approved in principle, including a tax levy increase of 1.9%, and that the proposed 2025 water rate increase of 2.5% be approved as per section 6.5 of the 2020 Thames Center Water and Wastewater Rate Study, and that the proposed 2025 wastewater rate increase of 2% be approved as per section 6.5 of the 2020 Thames Center Water and Wastewater Rate Study, and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary budget bylaw for the first regular meeting of council in 2025.
All right. So, Councillor Crockett, you're moving the motion, and the seconder, Deputy Mayor Smybert, all in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. So moving on to the confirmatory bylaw, item 7. Can we? Okay, sorry, a little bit of back and forth here this morning. All right, we'll move to the confirmatory bylaw. That 7.1, bylaw 83-2024, being a confirmatory bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution of the municipality of Thames Center, and that bylaw 83-2024, being the confirmatory bylaw, be approved. The mover and the seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the meeting schedule. Of course, later today at 5 p.m., there will be the regular council meeting. Then Wednesday, December the 11th, 9 a.m., a special budget meeting if required. And that the special meeting of council scheduled for, no, I'm sorry, we can't move to that one yet.
Yeah, it's whether or not they
okay.
would like to, council would like to cancel the special budget meeting on Wednesday.
Not
At this point, we have nothing else to discuss that I know of. So I need someone to,
Okay, all righty. So that the special meeting of council scheduled for Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024 at 9 a.m. be canceled, and that the clerk be directed to post this change on the municipal website. So a mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett, all in favor. Thank you. That passes. So adjournment is at 11:49 p.m. A.m. Sorry, it only feels like p.m. So a mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Lockie, all in favor. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.